Chapter 35 Before the meeting and the beginning of the meeting. In a place not known? So everyone has gathered, said someone. Tiamat then entered a very large room, seen several people in the large room, there were also several soldiers around them. In front of her, there were several others in the front sitting around. I didn't know it would be crowded like this, said someone. Susanoo was seen sitting in her chair calmly and then saw another person. There were two men in front of her. Sorry I'm late, said a man who smiled sweetly at them all. How can you be late? Asked a man in his 30s sharply towards the sweet man. Sorry, I'm looking for a new member, replied the man. Next time, I really won't come at this meeting, said the cold man. Sorry, Kronos, said the man, smiling mysteriously. Kronos only felt truly doubtful that he really entered a good group. Kronos then looked at another direction where Tiamat was. Do you want to join this meeting or just stay there? Kronos asked sharply. Tiamat was then angry with the words from Kronos, who immediately snapped at her. So far she has never been snapped at by anyone or anyone. Tiamat withstood her anger, then walked towards the table and then sat in her arrogant style. Oh, we have two new members again. I'm happy because it's not just me, a woman here, said a woman in front of Tiamat. Seen a dark black-haired woman, purple eyes staring at her with a sadistic smile. She wore minimal clothes with bat wings behind her. Oh Lilith, I didn't know you would join this group, Tiamat said, knowing who she was. The woman named Lilith then smiled to hear the word from Tiamat. She was not too serious in the face of her. Yes, you know, after Michael drove me out of heaven, I feel bored knowing, said Lilith in a pleasing tone. Tiamat and everyone then really knows why a woman like her can be cast out of heaven. She can practically tempt all angels in heaven until she is finally cast out of heaven. Can we start this meeting? Susanoo asked impatiently. Oh well, because Susanoo-kun has said like that, then we will start this meeting, said the woman who seemed to lead the meeting with a mysterious smile. So Zapiria, why do you want to join us? Asked the leader of this meeting with a smile. The woman named Zapiria then just smiled at the question from the person. I joined because of one thing, said Zapiria, who then looked at the man. To destroy my sister's power, said Zapiria with a sadistic smile. Oh, you want to destroy your sister? Is the Eveline family uneasy? Lilith asked. No, as long as she is still sitting on the throne, said Zapiria. And again, I found someone who wanted to seize power, said Tiamat suddenly. Zapiria then looked at Tiamat with a sharp and arrogant look. Is that a problem? Zapiria asked. No, I just feel I've met a lot of people like that, said Tiamat, who then looked at Susanoo. Susanoo then just furiously saw that Tiamat seemed to be mocking him. Never mind, isn't the time to start this meeting, said a woman who was walking towards them. Gaia. Ibu Kada Kronos. Gaia's grandmother is right, said the man. Gaia then looks annoyed when hearing the meeting leader call her grandmother. Hey, I am old but I haven't seen my grandmother, Gaia said angrily. Oh sorry, said the man. Everyone there then quietly relaxed unless Lilith, who was entertained, saw this interesting conversation. Well, this meeting will begin, said the man. So what is this meeting about? Kronos asked. About the three factions meeting. X. In Ayano's house. Papa. Scene now. Lulu is waking up her father, who is sleeping on the bed. Lulu looks confused to wake Luffy. Lulu then pulls Luffy's nose and Lulu is shocked by seeing Luffy's nose instead. Whoa, surprised Lulu. Lulu then released Luffy's nose and Luffy's nose then returned to normal. Lulu looked curious about the strength of her father. Lulu then pulled Luffy's cheek and then Lulu was shocked to see her father's cheeks also stretched. Cool, Lulu shouted happily. Lulu then played with her father's face cheerfully. Seen Luffy's lips tied Luffy's head. Luffy's nose was tied. Hehehehe, Papa is so funny, said Lulu cheerfully. Luffy doesn't seem bothered by her daughter's actions. Luffy still looks asleep. Lulu just laughed at Luffy's face now. Luffy, are you awake? A voice came from below. Lulu knew whose voice it was. Lulu then woke her up again. Papa, get up, cried Lulu. Lulu continues to wake her father but doesn't work. Luffy still sleeps very well and looks still snoring. Luffy, come on. Suddenly Ayano then entered Luffy's room with anger because he hadn't called before answering. Ayano is now looking at Lulu, who is waking her father with difficulty. Ayano feels sorry for Lulu. Lulu, let me wake him up, said Ayano. Lulu then looked towards Ayano and then nodded. Lulu then descended from Luffy's body and saw Luffy from the side. Ayano then approached Luffy with an annoyed look. "Well, Lulu, you should step back first," said Ayano. Lulu then retreated a little from Luffy and Ayano. Ayano then smiled at Lulu. Ayano felt like Lulu would become her future daughter, but Ayano knew that Lulu was the daughter of Luffy and a queen. "I'm confused. How does he make almost every woman attracted to him?" thought Ayano with confusion. Ayano then holding both his feet, Luffy slams into the floor. Ayano with all her strength then slams Luffy on the floor. "Wake up!" Ayano shouted. Luffy then felt that his head then hit something. Luffy then woke up with a still sleepy face. "Well, Papa got up," said Lulu. Luffy then looks at Ayano with a sleepy face. Luffy then looks at Lulu, who seems happy because her father has woken up. "Why did you wake me up, Ayano?" Luffy asked. "It's already morning. You have to take a shower immediately," said Ayano. Luffy then floats with a sleepy face and then takes a towel and goes to the bathroom to take a shower immediately. "Papa, I'm coming." Lulu then wanted to take a bath with her father. Ayano was shocked to hear the words from Lulu. Luffy then looked at Lulu, who seemed eager to take a bath with him. "Sure," said Luffy. Lulu was happy and walked towards her father to take a bath together. Ayano didn't feel that this was wrong. Lulu was Luffy's daughter, so naturally this was natural. Ayano then decided to go down to prepare breakfast for all. Honestly, Ayano felt the day-to-day the house was getting crowded. "But I don't feel alone anymore," said Ayano, who then headed down. In the bathroom, Luffy is now soaking in the bath with Lulu playing with her rubber duck. Luffy doesn't know why Lulu wants to bathe with him. Lulu wants Luffy to wet her hair. "Hey, why do you want to take a bath with me?" Luffy asked. Lulu then turned to look at her father. Lulu now completely wet with wet silver hair. Luffy felt like she had seen that hair. "Because Mama always bathes me like this, I also want to do it with Papa," said Lulu. Luffy then heard Lulu talk about her mother. Really, Luffy felt that he never married at all, but how could he have children? Lulu then looks cool again playing the rubber duck. "I want to ask, is your mother ever meeting me?" asked Luffy. "Of course," said Lulu, surprised by Luffy, who felt he had never met her mother, even though her own mother said. Luffy then thought about the words from Lulu. Luffy once again then tried to remember some of the women in his brain, but he never met the exact woman with Lulu. Luffy then thought that he might forget because there were so many adventurers. Luffy then washed Lulu's hair and then gently caressed it. Luffy had never met his mother at all. He then really asked what his mother was like. He never met her at all. Luffy was only cared for by his grandfather and dad since childhood. "Papa, do you want to meet Mama?" Lulu asked. "Yes, I want to know what she looks like," said Luffy. Lulu just smiled to hear the words from her father. Lulu then played with her rubber duck again. Luffy still cleanses Lulu's hair with soap. Lulu looks comfortable when Luffy cleans her head with soap. Mom is preparing Papa's arrival at Evland. Mama has also provided some cellar for Papa, said Lulu. Luffy was then surprised by the words of Lulu about the concubine. Luffy had no idea what the concubine was. "What's the concubine?" Luffy asked. "Yes, the concubine is a person who satisfies the king's wishes. Does Papa not know?" asked Lulu back. Lulu was shocked because her father didn't know what concubine was. Luffy only saw a smile about the concubine. She didn't need them at all, but if they could make food then Luffy needed them. "Can they cook?" Luffy asked. "No, they are only taught how to satisfy a man," said Lulu. Although Lulu was a child, Lulu knew about intimate relationships. She was the one who taught her. "Then I don't want to, I just want them to be able to cook and make very tasty food," said Luffy. Lulu was surprised to hear from her father. Her father was not interested in sex at all. She preferred the very tasty food in front of him. Lulu then smiled, understanding the words of her mother, who said that her father was very innocent. "Mama is right about you, Papa. You are so innocent," said Lulu with a sweet smile. Luffy just paused, then smiled at Lulu, who seemed very happy with it. Luffy enjoys his time with his child. Luffy doesn't know how to take care of a child, but he knows how to take care of a child like Makino teach him. "Why did she do that?" Luffy asked. "Yes, because Papa will be the king there," said Lulu. "King?" Luffy was confused by the words from Lulu. "Yes, Papa will be king of Evland," said Lulu. Luffy was amazed by Lulu's words. He didn't think that he would become the king of his country. Luffy just thought he wanted to be a pirate king. I don't want to be a king there, I just want to be a pirate king, Luffy said, refusing softly. Lulu then closed her eyes. She seemed to know that her father would say that. She knew it because her mother was telling her. I already knew that Papa would talk like that, exactly what Mama was told, said Lulu, still closing her eyes, but Mama didn't want to give up, said Lulu. Luffy just smiled to hear the words from Lulu. Luffy had heard a lot of words saying that she would not give up. Luffy really liked that kind of person. Then tell her to try, I won't lose, said Luffy. Lulu then smiled at the words of her father. She was really happy to have a father like Luffy who was very easy to smile and fun. Then we should hurry, Ayano must be waiting for us, said Luffy, who then rinsed Lulu's hair with water. Lulu then was seen washing her body with water quickly because she didn't want to be angry with Ayano. Lulu now understood why her father was afraid of Ayano. Luffy and Lulu finished bathing and then they came out of the bathroom and then out of the bathroom and then put on their clothes and then down. Ayano then saw the father and daughter then descended happily because he saw a lot of food on the table. Riazu saw Lulu just silent, still thinking about last night. Midelt then headed towards Lulu and hugged her because she had considered her own sister. Lulu-sama, let's have breakfast, asked Rainer towards Lulu. Lulu was confused because she was called the same word in her name. Did she know her before? Oh yeah, I forgot. Introduce, my name Rainer and I am a servant to Luffy, said Rainer, introducing herself. Lulu then was shocked because her father had a fallen angel servant. Lulu then looked towards the side. That blue-haired woman was smiling towards her. I'm Kalauerner, I'm also Luffy-sama's servant, said Kalauerner. Lulu then was more surprised because not only one but she. Lulu then looked at Midelt who was smiling. Is Midelt senpai too? Lulu asked. Yes, like that, said Midelt. Lulu was shocked to see her senpai was a fallen angel too. Lulu had never seen a fallen angel at all. Lulu then looks very happy. It's time for breakfast, said Ayano. Luffy and Lulu then sat ready to sit down, and then the two of them then ate food on the table very quickly. Ayano, who saw it, then just sighed resignedly. Ayano then looked at the three fallen angels. Rainer, Kalauerner, and Midelt, I will register you for the Cow Academy, said Ayano. The three fallen angels then were shocked to hear it. They will soon go to school with Ayano and Luffy. The three fallen angels then looked happy now. Thank you, Ayano-sama, said Rainer. Ayano just smiled as Rainer thanked her. She already understood that Rainer and the others would be lonely. I want to come. Lulu suddenly heard the voice who wanted to come along. You want to go to school, Lulu? Asked Ayano. Right, I want to see my father's school, said Lulu with enthusiasm. Well, you can go there, said Ayano. Yay! Lulu shouted with enthusiasm. Luffy and the others ate their breakfast. Luffy, Ayano and Riaz then get ready to go to school. Looks like Lulu is being carried by Luffy on his back. We will go now, Rainer, said Ayano. Be careful on the road, said the three fallen angels. The four then went walking towards Cow's school. Lulu looked very happy when she was carried by Luffy. Riaz and Ayano just sighed to see that the child seemed impatient and too happy. Did you go to school, Lulu? Luffy asked. Yes, Mama sent me to Evland. There are many different races, said Lulu. Different races, how can it be? Riaz asked curiously. They are Ross who are dumped from their land or lost their war to Evland. Mama gladly accepted them from their homeland not to make a noise. Mama would also send their children to school. Lulu said. Wow, it looks like your mother is a good person, Luffy said happily. That's right, it's because of your own father, said Lulu. Luffy was confused by the words from Lulu. Right, because father inspired Mama, said Lulu. Luffy seemed confused by Lulu's words. He never inspired someone at all, maybe. I think I want to meet your mother, said Luffy curiously. Lulu just smiles when she hears her father wants to meet her mother. She is a happy person because her parents will meet. Skip time. Finally we arrived, said Luffy. Lulu then was shocked to see that there was a gate in the school which was quite large. She did not think that the school was big enough. Riaz and Ayano smiled as Lulu looked happy. Great, impressed Lulu. Shishishi, I also think like that when I first met, said Luffy. They then enter the gate. Lulu looks happy to see many students who arrive. Because so passionate, Lulu then sat on Luffy's neck. Luffy was shocked but then held both of Lulu's legs so as not to fall back. Look at Papa, they are so many, said Lulu with enthusiasm. Riaz and Ayano once again could only smile gently seeing Lulu so excited. The students then who saw this then were curious about the child that was brought by Luffy. Who is that sweet kid? She's so cute. Is she a little idol? Look at her, she's so sweet. Lulu shouted and shouted. Lulu was surprised because all of a sudden the students came towards her. Rias and Ayano were also surprised to see this. Why are they coming to us, Papa? Asked Lulu whispering. I don't know, but they seemed interested in you, Luffy said. The crowd of students then headed towards the two of them. Luffy was a little confused because he didn't know what to do, while Lulu looked confused with the crowd. What's your name? Asked one of the crowd. I'm Lulu, said Lulu cheerfully as usual. Wow, funny name, said one of the crowd. Luffy and Lulu tried to get out of the crowd, but it was very difficult because the crowd was very crowded. Then the two women who Luffy knew. Get out of all of you, one of the women shouted. Luffy then looked smiling at the two women. It was seen now that everyone was giving way to the two women. Kates and Murayama, Luffy called. The two Kendo girls then headed towards Luffy and were confused by seeing Luffy carrying a little girl on his shoulder. Who is she? Asked Kates. Luffy wants to answer, but it doesn't seem to be good because there are people around him. Luffy then brought his face closer to Kates. Kates then shocked because suddenly Luffy brought his face closer. Kates confidently then closed her eyes thinking that Luffy would kiss her. It looks like we will talk later, said Luffy whispering to Kates. Kates then surprised if Luffy only whispered something in his ear. Kates then shyly thought that Luffy would kiss it openly. All right, Kates shouted sulkily. Murayama looks surprised with her best friend who suddenly pouts. She doesn't know what really happened. Ria seems to hold back laughing knowing what really happened. Excuse me, I want to pass, Ria said. Everyone was shocked to see that Rias was there. Rias easily passed all those people and headed towards Luffy and Lulu. Rias then grabs Luffy's hand. Can you give us away? Rias pleaded. Okay, Ria-sama, shouted all of them. Rias then pulls Luffy away from the crowd. Kates and Murayama then follows them both. Ayano seemed to want to join, but she still had a lot of schoolwork. Why do I have a lot of schoolwork? Ayano said. Ayano then goes to her class. She hopes that today Luffy won't have a problem because she will keep her busy again. With Luffy and its others. Looks like Kates and Murayama are now glaring at Luffy and Lulu. You must be kidding, Kates said incredulously. Murayama also looks shocked to hear, Luffy already has a daughter, that's right. But this is indeed the reality, said Rias. Luffy used to date a woman, but the woman raped Luffy until she got pregnant, Rias continued. Rias hides who Lulu really is. It became like that. Murayama then looked understanding. Kates felt sorry for the innocent Luffy. She didn't think that Luffy was raped by someone. Rias, who made up this story, just smiled to herself. If she says Luffy was raped by a woman, everyone will believe it because it can be seen for themselves that Luffy is too innocent. I didn't expect you to have a dark past, Luffy said. Kates, who wore a pity. Luffy just looks smiling. Luffy just goes with the flow from Rias. Rias looks happy because the plan is running smoothly. Kates then looked at Lulu, who was confused by this incident. I feel sorry for you, said Kates, who then stroked Lulu's head. Lulu looks confused because she is being caressed, but it seems like she then realizes that it seems like Rias is hiding her true identity. Now where is your mother? Murayama asked, looking at Lulu. My mother is away, said Lulu. Kates and Murayama were shocked to hear it. They didn't think that this little girl had a bad fate. Gosh, this world is indeed cruel, said Kates, looking sad at Lulu. Rias just looks smiling because the two Kendo girls believe her talk. Luffy and Lulu seem confused to say something. Skip time. Rias, Luffy and Lulu are in the occult research building. Lulu is seen playing with Kaneko. Akino is making food for Luffy. Rias is sitting in her place as usual. Kiba is talking to Issei. Asia is interested in talking to Lulu. Zenovia is having business with Zoro. Can you use magic? Asia asked Lulu. Of course, I can use high-level magic, said Lulu cheerfully. High-level magic? Asked Asia. Right, I can use fire as hellfire, said Lulu. Asia looks surprised by the words of Lulu, whose point is that Lulu is not an ordinary child of her age. Great, said Asia. Kaneko also looks surprised to hear that. Kaneko then looks at Luffy again, thinking Luffy is really strong, even his descendants too. I can also feel the energy of others from a distance, said Lulu. Asia and Kaneko then hear it, both of them then feel that the power is the same as Luffy's power. Luffy can also feel someone's energy from far away. It looks like that power has been handed down from generation to generation, said Kaneko. You're right, Kaneko, said Asia. Kaneko and Asia are still talking to Lulu. Akino is seen giving Luffy some snacks that seem to be hungry. Your appetite can't be matched, Luffy-kun, Akino said. Shishihi, they all say that, said Luffy, still chewing the snacks. Luffy looks still chewing on his food. Akino just looks at Luffy with a smile as usual but is very sincere. Rias is seen staring at the window beside her. You all remember, tonight is the meeting, said Rias. We understand, Butcho, said Rias Peerage. Luffy then looked at Rias, who seemed worried about something. Luffy then calls Rias. Hey Rias, are you thinking about something? Luffy asked Rias. Rias then was surprised because Luffy called. Rias then looked at Luffy, who was staring at her by investigating. Rias is honest that Luffy's gaze is really like looking for honesty from her. Yes, I'm worried about meeting tonight, Rias said. Just relax, Rias, the meeting will be fine, said Luffy with enthusiasm. Rias then sees an optimistic Luffy, then smiles. Luffy's smile can make other people safer with him. So did Akino, who saw Luffy. Thank you, Luffy, said Rias. Luffy then confused because Rias suddenly thanked him. Luffy thought whether he was doing a good thing to Rias. Thank you for making me more calm, Rias said. Luffy then understood Rias. Luffy then smiled cheerfully to see Rias, who seemed to finally be able to laugh again. You're welcome, Rias, Luffy said cheerfully. Everyone there then talked to each other with laughter that is loud enough. Tonight is a quite tense meeting. Where tonight there will be a problem or run smoothly. Kyoto. Seen now that there was a monster ghoul looking at the man in front of them. The man was wearing a white hat with black spots. The man was holding a long sword on his shoulder. Who are you? Don't block us, said one ghoul. Sorry, I can't do that, said the man. Then one of the ghouls was shocked to find out who he was. The ghoul was frightened to know who he was. We better not fight it, said ghoul. Why? Are you afraid? Asked one of the ghouls. Our job is abducting the queen, said one ghoul. The man was still staring at all the ghouls with a relaxed look, and there was also a smile on his lips. Don't you know who he is? Asked ghoul, who was afraid. Who is he really, ghoul asked loudly. He is the surgeon who is often told that, said ghoul, who was afraid. The ghoul was then shocked to hear that. They had heard that there were people who had strange powers living in Kyoto. The man seems to have a close relationship with Yasuka Ratu this area. He is just an ordinary human. I don't even feel any magic energy from him, said ghoul casually. All right, attack, shouted one of the ghouls. The ghouls then ran to attack the man. Then he just smiled and then raised his hand casually. I haven't used my devil fruit in a while, said the man. Room. The man's voice was heard. Suddenly there was a blue cube covering the area there quite broadly. The ghouls were shocked to see it. They never saw anything like this. You will be victims of my operations, said the man. The man then took out his long sword. Then he slashed from his place very casually. Slash. The man then slashed all of the several ghouls. The ghoul then was shocked to see some of their friends suddenly split. What? Shouted one of the ghouls. You are careless. The man then slashed again and hit the other ghoul, and they were all blown away until they were split in two. The ghouls who were hit and then shocked to see their friends split up. There were those whose heads were split, their legs, their hands, and even their two bodies. What's the matter? Shouted one of the ghouls. This will be more attractive. The man then raised one of his hands. Chaos. Then those who split and then bounced somewhere. They couldn't do anything now because their bodies were completely split. Damn, this man is not an ordinary man, said a ghoul who survived. What do I say? He's not an ordinary person, said the devious ghoul. Some other ghouls ran away because they felt that this man was not their draw. Stay, one ghoul again. So do you still want to fight me? The man asked mockingly. Don't be arrogant first, man, shouted the ghoul, who then lunged at the man. The man then looked, just sighing at ghoul's stupidity. You turned out to be more stupid than Mujiwara, yes, said the man. The man then raised his right hand casually and then smiled towards ghoul. Shambles. Suddenly the ghoul then disappeared and teleported in front of the man. The ghoul was shocked to see it. You should be wiser in fighting, said the man, who then slashed the ghoul until the ghoul was finally cut off and then unconscious. The man then looked around to make sure that there were no more ghouls left. The man then looks happy because it's over. Finally I can go back to the castle, said the man, who then walked away back to the castle. The man then remembers that Yasuka said that there was something wrong about the Chaos Brigade. The man then walked along Kyoto. Chapter 36, A Great Meeting. Disclaimer, Ichiro Oda and Ichii Shidumi. Warning, non-canon, DLL. Written by, Arista 101. In another place which is not known. There is a man carrying a walking stick to a place. He wears a crown on his head, has a monkey's tail and wears red armor. I want to know why office called me, said the person. The person then saw in front of him some people waiting for him. He was surprised because they were waiting for him. Where have you been? You've taken forever, said a haired man. Sorry, I didn't know you were all waiting, said the man who carried the stick. He is Vali, the White Dragon Emperor. Vali looks upset looking at him. The person who was angry then just smiled bitterly, feeling guilty because this was indeed his fault. So what's the matter, said a woman wearing a black kimono, seen wearing a bell on her waist, and having a cat tail behind her. She was a yokai cat. Office wants to tell us about something, said Vali. About what? Asked the person carrying the stick. Office suddenly appeared. They then wear their serious faces. About a new member, Office said with her flat face. The three were then shocked by the words of Office, who said there was a new member in the Chaos Brigade. Vali seemed curious about the new member. Was the new person really strong to be worthy of joining the Chaos Brigade? Is he strong? Asked Vali. Office then looked at Vali, who suddenly asked whether the new member was strong or not. Kuroka then felt that he was fighting with this new person. It was seen that the person wearing the crown was Sun Wukong. He will be with your team, Office said. The three then nodded understanding. The three of them were still curious about who the new person was. Office then looked back to welcome the new person. Please enter, said Office. The new person then entered the room of the four of them. The three people there were then shocked to see the new person, a tall, muscular man. The man had short crimson hair. He wore a white scarf over his mouth. There was a tear and there was a stitch in his mouth like a torn mouth. He was seen to have a pink tattoo on his left chest and there was a skull tattoo on his left arm. He wears a black vest, wears black pants, wears a spiked bracelet on his arm, and he's wearing black shoes that have spurs. He looked at the three people with a sharp look. He seemed to be not nervous at all. The three were really shocked to see the person. They could not say anything because seeing the appearance of the man could be said to be quite scary. The person then saw Vali. This is what you're gonna say, who are you, said the person with a sharp look. Then Vali was really shocked to hear it, not because he talked to him directly but because he knew what he wanted to say. Vali was really shocked to hear him. How did you know I would say that? Asked Vali. You don't need to know, said the person. Vali just feels annoyed at the words of the person. He feels that the person is hiding something important. Vali, I feel that this person is not an ordinary person, said the White Dragon Emperor. I also feel like that, Albion, said Vali. Vali was still staring at that person with a sharp look because he was suspicious of his strength. Kuroka only smiled at the appearance of that person, which could be said to display a man. While Bika was only surprised by Vali's words, saying that he knew the words of Vali before saying it. Well, I hope you can be familiar, said Office with her flat face. Office then went to the exit and left. That person then seemed to be silent, still staring at the three of them. That person felt that he seemed to be indirectly received here. Kuroka then approached the person. So, what's your name? Kuroka asked sweetly. That person then sighed at Kuroka. He then looked towards the three of them with a sharp look again. My name is Charlotte Katakuri, said the person. The three of them then nodded understanding. Katakuri then just sighed because he did not know where he was now. He wanted to go to Wano to deal with Straw Hat, but he was instead stuck in the middle of nowhere. Oh, greetings, my name is Kuroka, Kuroka said, introducing herself. My Bikau card. Vali is still staring at Katakuri with a sharp gaze, curious about his strength. Vali then introduced himself too. I'm Vali, said Vali. Katakuri only nodded understanding with their names. He now doesn't know what to do now in this place. He really had no purpose now. When he was here, he was found by a little girl wearing gothic clothes. Katakuri then was brought to this place and then joined the woman. Where are you from? Kuroka asked. I came from a remote area, said Katakuri casually. Kuroka only nodded understanding. Actually, this guy in front of her was someone who seemed to be a cold and indifferent person seen from his appearance. Then hopefully we will become familiar, Kuroka said sweetly. Katakuri then just sighed understanding with Kuroka. Bikao then just smiled quite happy because there was a new member. Vali still saw Katakuri with a pretty sharp gaze. Skip time, in Ayano's house. Seen now at Ayano's house there are many people who are crowded. They are Luffy, Ayano, Rias, Lulu and the three fallen angels. They are talking about something that seems very important. Well, tonight is the meeting, said Rias. Luffy then looks happy because he wants to see what the meeting looks like. Ayano only hopes that Luffy is fine at the meeting and looks like the three fallen angels look worried about their master. Luffy-sama, please let us join, Rainer said with hope. Rias was surprised to hear the words from Rainer saying that the three fallen angels wanted to join the meeting. Luffy then sees Rainer. No, you can't go there. What do you think will happen if Azazel sees you? Rias said. Ayano was shocked to hear the words from Rias. Ayano felt that Rias was worried about the three fallen angels seen from Rias's words. Ayano then smiled towards Rias. But we want to help Luffy-sama, said Rainer gloomily. Yes, we feel that we would be useless as servants, said Kalauerner also gloomy. Midelt also looks moody to join Luffy and guard him from enemies who will attack him. Luffy, who saw them and smiled, could see their clear passion. Well, you can come along, said Luffy with a smile. Rias is then surprised to hear Luffy's words that allow the three fallen angels to join the meeting. But Luffy, what if they were seen by Azazel? They would be in law for their treachery, said Rias. Take it easy, I will look after them. I will not let someone named Azazel hurt Rainer and the others, Luffy said confidently. The three fallen angels then looked moved to hear the words of Luffy, who said he would guard them without fear of what would happen. Luffy-sama, thank you, said Rainer respectfully. Shishishi laughed Luffy happily. Rias and Ayano just smiled at Luffy, who was full of charisma. Lulu, who heard the words from her father and wondered, could this be the cause of her mother falling in love with Luffy? Okay, it's time for a meeting, Luffy shouted with enthusiasm. Everyone there then just smiles to see Luffy, who is always optimistic. Lulu looks at her father with pride because he always makes other people more confident with his words. In school, Cow. Rias, Luffy, Lulu and the three fallen angels were already at Cow's school where the meeting place was held. They were walking to the place of the occult research building to gather with Rias' peerage. They then arrived at the building and then went inside. Rias then opened the living room door. Looks like there is Akino, Kiba, Kaneko, Asia, Zenobia and Issei in the living room. They are waiting for their Butcho to go to the principal's office where the meeting was held. Are you ready? Rias asked. Yes, Butcho. Well, it's time to head to the principal's office, Rias said. Wait, Butcho, what about Gasper? Asked Issei. Gasper, Rias was confused. Gasper doesn't want to get out of his room, said Kaneko. Rias then sighs to hear that Gasper still doesn't dare to come out of his room, even though last night he just came out of his room and trained with Luffy and Zoro. Do I have to force him out again to get out? Luffy asked. There's no need for Luffy, just let him have the room, Kaneko. Rias then called Kaneko. Ya Butcho. Please help Gasper, demanded Rias. All right, Kaneko replied with obedience. Rias then smiled, thinking that the meeting would be fine. Issei then looks at Luffy's back and sees the three fallen angels. What are they doing here, Butcho? Issei asked. They will come with us because Luffy wants it, Rias said. Luffy then smiled, thinking that they seemed shocked to allow Rainer and the others to come to the meeting. Rainer then went forward and looked at the Rias peerage members. I won't do crime anymore, I've changed, said Rainer while looking down at Rias peerage. Rias peerage was then shocked to see Rainer suddenly look down at them. They all smiled at the different nature of Rainer. Luffy then just smiled at Rainer, who is now truly confident. No, we do not think about that anymore, said Akino, who then held Rainer's shoulder and then lifted it up. Thank you, said Rainer. Rias just smiles at this incident. Looks like fallen angels and devils suddenly forgive each other and look familiar. Rias then looks at Luffy, who looks still smiling. Rias feels that Luffy is someone who can change people's thoughts quickly. You're really great, Luffy, Rias thought. Rias smiles to see Luffy, who has the power to turn his enemy into a friend. Well, it's time to go to the headmaster's office, Rias said. Everyone then nodded understanding. All of them then came out of the Magical Research Club building and then headed to the school building. Riaz led them way ahead. Luffy was seen carrying Lulu on his shoulder. Is it okay to bring Lulu-chan to the meeting? Akino asked Luffy. It's okay, after all I want to stay with Papa, said Lulu. Akino then just smiled at the words from Lulu. When they want to enter the building, Riaz and the others then see that there are some people waiting at the entrance. Ah, Sona, said Riaz. Why took you so long? Asked Sona. Sorry, we had to do something, said Riaz. Luffy then headed towards Zoro, still holding Lulu on his shoulder. Zoro then saw Luffy heading towards him. Luffy was confused because he saw Zoro, who seemed very tired. What's with you, Zoro? Luffy asked. Damn that women, said Zoro. Women? Luffy was confused. My sister, Sarafal, said Sona. She told me and the woman to shop for some strange clothes one day, Zoro said irritably. My sister really likes cosplay, said Sona. Luffy and Zoro just stopped saying nothing. Riaz nodded understanding with Sona. Her sister is a cosplayer enthusiast, so Zoro must bring all of Sarafal's clothes. Ha 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 ha, I don't know why you always have problems with women, Zoro said Luffy with a laugh. Zoro then felt annoyed by the words of his captain. He could not refuse the words at all because he always had problems with women. Never mind, we must immediately go to the principal's office, said Sona seriously. Riaz then nods in understanding. Riaz and Sona Peerage then nods understanding. They all enter the school building. Sona then realizes that 3 fallen angels are participating with Luffy. Why are there fallen angels here? Sona asked. Relax, they are not enemies, said Riaz with a smile. Sona raised her eyebrows confused by Riaz's words, but she just let it go because of the words of her friend. Lulu seemed to be happy because she thought that this meeting would be very pleasant. Wait, who is this little kid? Asked Sona, just realizing. Riaz was shocked because Sona didn't realize that Lulu was here. Lulu then looked at Sona, who was pointing at her in surprise. Is there a problem here? Lulu asked. I just want to know, who are you? Sona asked. I'm Lulu, said Lulu. And why are you here? Sona asked again. Because I want to accompany Papa, said Lulu. Papa? Sona was confused. Right, Papa, said Lulu pointing downward. Luffy. Sona and Peerage then were really shocked to hear it. They then gaped unbelievingly at Luffy. They all really couldn't believe that this Straw Hat Boy turned out to have a child. That's impossible, said Riot incredulously. How can it be, said Tomo. Zoro just sighs resignedly to see all the members of Sona. Sona then realizes from her shocked attitude and then looks at Riaz. Is that really? Sona asked. Riaz then nods to convince Sona. Sona seems to still not believe it. How can a boy who is so innocent have a child at an early age? I'm not lying, said Lulu, who felt that Sona didn't believe her. Okay, I understand, said Sona. Lulu then looked happy because finally Sona trusted her. Sona then had to think about this only next time because this time there was a more important ceremony. It's time for us to go to the principal's office, said Sona. They all then continued their journey to the principal's office. They then arrived at the principal's office door. Well, don't make a fuss because this is an important event, said Sona. Take it easy, Sona, said Riaz. Sona then looked at Luffy with a sharp look. Luffy was confused because Sona looked at him with that look. Especially you, Luffy, said Sona. Luffy only looks silly because Sona is very worried about him, who will destroy this very important event. Relax, Sona, I won't make a scene, Luffy said optimistically. I hope so, said Sona. Sona then opened the door to see the people inside. They all then saw the people in the room. There were some people there. The first was a red-haired man who looked like Riaz. Secondly, there was a man with black hair but one yellow bang. And there was also a black-haired woman like Sona but shorter, sitting with a happy smile. And the third, there was a golden yellow-haired man who looked smiling. There were also some people behind them who were very familiar to Riaz and Luffy. Oh, Uncle Red Hair is here too, said Luffy pointing at Surzetches. Surzetches, who saw Luffy pointing at him, then just smiled. He knew that Luffy would come. Sona then looked upset because Luffy immediately pointed at one of the Demon Kings of Hell casually. I thought he would calm down, said Sona, holding her forehead. So he is the human representative? Asked the golden-haired man. Luffy then looked at the man and was surprised because there was something on his head that was yellow-shaped like a circle. Luffy was really amazed to see that thing. What is that? Luffy then approached the man to look at the object closer. Lulu has come down from Luffy's shoulder. The man looked shocked because Luffy held his hand. Everyone was shocked to see Luffy's behavior. Riaz and Peerage were just silent and couldn't say anything. Surzetches just smiled at Luffy's usual behavior that was easily amazed. Luffy-sama, you should not do that, said a silver-haired woman, Graphia. Luffy then looks confused because he can't hold the object anymore. Luffy then backs away while looking at the man in front of him. So what is it, uncle? Luffy asked Michael. Michael just smiled at Luffy, who was full of curiosity. This is a halo, all angels have it, said Michael. Luffy then only nodded understanding. Luffy then looked towards Rainer and the two fallen angels. Why doesn't Rainer and the others have it? Are they not angels? Asked Luffy with a big question mark. Rainer and the other fallen angels then smiled nervously at the question from their master. Riaz then explained. It is only owned by angels who are still in heaven. Rainer and the others have been removed from heaven, so they don't have it, said Riaz explained. Luffy just nodded understanding. The man with yellow bangs then looked at Rainer and the other fallen angel. Rainer then felt nervous looking like that. So you have made a problem, said the person casually. Luffy then saw that man seemed to be looking at Rainer and the others with sharp eyes. Rainer, Kalauner and Midelt then couldn't say anything. Aren't you? Luffy then shouted at the man. The man then looked at Luffy. Luffy really knew the man. Luffy then remembers that he met the man when he came home from school. Yes, we have met, said the man. Who are you? Luffy asked. He is Azazel, leader of the Fallen Angels faction, said Graphia, telling Luffy. Luffy then only nodded understanding. Luffy didn't care about that person's position, but he felt that the person seemed to have problems with Rainer, Kalauner and Midelt. So why are you staring at Rainer, Kalauner and Midelt like that? Luffy asked. Because they are my men and they have betrayed me, said Azazel with a smile. Luffy then understood the words of Azazel. Luffy felt that the three fallen angels were innocent, they were just in the blame of someone. Luffy then headed toward the three falling angels. If you want to punish them, you have to face me first, said Luffy firmly. Everyone there was then surprised to hear the words from Luffy that is quite firm. Azazel then smiled towards Luffy, who was very firm and brave to face him. Azazel, isn't this your fault too, said Surzetches. Azazel then faced Surzetches, who seemed to blame him. It seemed Surzetches didn't feel worried about his words because he was right. What do you mean, Surzetches? Azazel asked. You know, your leadership is very lazy, so many of your subordinates don't trust you anymore, said Surzetches. Azazel then just smiled at the words of Surzetches. It was true that he was very lazy in leading his group, so there were also many of his subordinates who had no more confidence. Everyone then agreed with the words of Surzetches, who said the facts. Well, this is my fault too, said Azazel. Everyone there then smiled because Azazel admitted his mistake. Luffy then smiled because it seemed Azazel would not punish Rainer and the others. Luffy then looked to Azazel's side. There was a man, also seen Zoro, who then headed for the man. Hey, are you the one? Zoro asked the person. There was a man wearing a black shirt and black pants that had a small chain, and he had white hair. You can say that, said the person. Oh, I have not introduced him, he is the White Dragon Emperor Vali, said Azazel. Everyone was shocked except Luffy and Zoro. Luffy and Zoro only looked confused with that person's name. Is this person in front of them very strong? Luffy and Zoro then seemed to feel that there is a strong opponent. So you're strong? Luffy asked. Of course, said Vali in his cold tone. Then one day we will fight, said Luffy with enthusiasm. Vali then just looks at Luffy with a normal look. Vali feels that Luffy is an ordinary human who doesn't have magic at all. I'm sorry, I don't want to fight an ordinary human being, said Vali in an arrogant tone. Surzetches, who heard it, then just smiled. Surzetches then found out that Vali didn't seem to know Luffy's strength. Oh yeah, I forgot, if we have other guests here, said Surzetches, who then looked at Zoro and Lulu. Zoro, who felt like he was staring, then just paused. Lulu then felt that a woman near Surzetches seemed to be staring at him with a neutral stare. So you are the first mate? Surzetches asked Zoro. Yes, said Zoro in a neutral tone. Surzetches then just nodded understanding. Surzetches then looked at Lulu, who was now hugged by Sarafal. Bro, you, said Lulu looking troubled. You're so funny, said Sarafal. Lulu then tried to break away from Sarafal. Lulu then managed to free herself from Sarafal and then ran towards Luffy and then hid behind Luffy. Creepy woman, Lulu said. Sarafal then looks at Luffy. Sarafal then approaches Luffy. Luffy only thinks who she is. Is she also one of the demon kings in the underworld? Who are you? Luffy asked. I'm Sarafal, one of the Maou, Sarafal said cheerfully. Luffy then widened in disbelief seeing her. She was one of the demon kings, meaning she must be very strong, Luffy thought. So you are a human being talked about in the recent underworld? Sarafal asked Luffy. Luffy then just looked confused because he didn't know that he had become so famous in the underworld because of ruining a wedding party between noble devils. Wow, I didn't expect that I was so famous, said Luffy quite surprised. Zoro then feels annoyed that only Luffy has now shown his fangs to the world. Zoro then thinks that he must also show his strength. Of course, you're very famous there, said Sarafal. Then I want to go to the underworld. I want to know what kind of place it is, said Luffy in a plain tone. Can we start the meeting? Azazel asked. Everyone then nodded to understand the words of Azazel. They all searched for their position. Surzetches then called Luffy. Luffy, you will sit with us too, said Surzetches. Riaz and Sona and their peerage were shocked to hear that. Luffy, who heard Surzetches, then understood and then headed to one of the chairs and then sat down. It is very unique if there are representatives of people participating in this meeting, said Michael. The meeting then began. Looks like Zenovia was staring at Irina near Michael. Zenovia felt that Irina looked angry with her. Zenovia then was just happy because Irina was fine. Azazel, what about your men? Asked Surzetches. You mean Kakabiel? Just calm down, I have sealed it eternally, said Azazel. They were at the table then just nodded understanding. They all then looked at Luffy, who was looking asleep soundly. Everyone was shocked to see Luffy suddenly fell asleep. Hurry up, Azazel said unexpectedly. I didn't know he was sleeping, said Michael, also surprised. Grafia and Sona just feel annoyed by the nature of Luffy, who doesn't care. Grafia and Sona then head towards Luffy and then bang! Looks like Grafia and Sona hit Luffy's head with their hands. Luffy woke up feeling that his head was hit. Is it morning? Asked Luffy woke up. Everyone there then sweat drops on Luffy's nature. Sona then returns to her position. She is shocked to see that Zoro is also asleep in the corner of the room. Sona, annoyed, then headed towards Zoro, who was sleeping. Hey, wake up, said Sona as she kicked Zoro's head. But Zoro seemed not to wake up too. Sona then didn't know what else to do. She then gave up seeing the two pirate characteristics. So the point is we will make peace, right? Luffy asked. That's right, said Michael. Then let's do it, said Luffy casually. The four of them then just smiled at Luffy's nature that went straight to the point. Grafia then took out a paper in front of the faction leaders. So we have to sign this? Azazel asked. Right, after signing this, you agree with this peace, Grafia said. Grafia then returned to Surzetches' side. Well, let's do this quickly, said Azazel, who then wanted to sign the paper. But when you want to sign the paper, some people then feel that someone is coming. Seen in the middle of the room there is a woman appearing. Who is she? Luffy asked. The woman then released an explosion in the room. The room was then seen exploding quite large, visible debris scattered in the room. It seems that Luffy and the others are fine because they are protected by protective magic. It looks like Luffy is still sitting in his chair. I thought it would be a surprise if someone was not happy with this meeting, said Azazel, who seemed to be calm. I also think like that, said Surzetches. They all then saw each other thinking whether they were okay. Riaz, Sona and their peerage are fine. Zoro and Lulu are fine too. Hey, look out, said Azazel. They all then looked outwards. There were several people wearing robes flying around the room. This incident was an ambush. Wow, there's a lot, said Luffy. They were all shocked to see so many people wearing black robes. Azazel then looked at Volley. All of them then felt that when time suddenly stopped. Riaz then knew what had happened. Gasper, shouted Riaz peerage. Riaz then panicked because she thought that Gasper must have experienced something. Surzetches then approached the panicked Riaz. Relax, Riaz, said Surzetches. One-sama, I have to help Gasper, Riaz said. Surzetches then tasted Riaz's words, but he didn't want to risk letting his sister fight the people outside of it. Then I'll help you, said Luffy suddenly. Surzetches then looks at Luffy and then smiles because Luffy wants to help Riaz. I'll also come along, said Zoro, who followed. Me too, said Issei. Riaz then feels happy because there is someone who will help her. Riaz then looks at Surzetches hoping that he will let her help Gasper. Oni-sama, please, said Riaz pleading. Surzetches then sighed with a sigh to see his stubborn sister. Surzetches then looked towards Luffy, Zoro and Issei. Take care of my sister, said Surzetches. With pleasure, said the three of them with enthusiasm. Surzetches then smiled at the three spirits of the young man. Surzetches then looked at Ria's peerage. And you will help us fight those people, said Surzetches. All Ria's peerage then nodded understanding. Rainerer, Kalauerner, and Midelt, you help them, orders Luffy to the three fallen angels. As per your orders, sir, said the three fallen angels. Luffy then looks at Lulu, who looks fine from the explosion. Lulu looks like she wants to come with Luffy. Lulu, you should stay here, said Luffy. But I want to come with Papa, said Lulu. No, it's very dangerous out there, you should be here, said Luffy. Lulu then nodded. Luffy then smiled happily. Luffy then looked towards Rias, who was preparing to go to help Gasper and Kaneko, who seemed to have problems. Are you ready? Rias asked. Of course, said Issei. Let's beat them, said Luffy with enthusiasm. I can finally show my fangs, said Zoro, who was also passionate. Rias then opened the door and the four then ran out into the occult research building. Surzetches hopes that his sister is fine. So Volley, can you take care of them? Azazel told Volley. Okay, because this is your order, said Volley. Volley then turns into dragon mode and then flies from the window to fight those people. And here we are, Azazel said. We can only hope that the children are fine, said Michael. Take it easy, the Luffy will be fine, said Aquino suddenly. Everyone was shocked to hear the words of Aquino, who believed in Luffy. Why are you so sure of that? Azazel asked. Because he is a very stubborn person, said Aquino. To be continued. End of chapter 36.